Hey everybody, welcome back to Laptop Seniors. We did the Victoria video on Vancouver Island, and that's where so many people go to retire if they're Canadian or American. But a lot of people come up from Seattle and Oregon to do that. And today we're going to continue on with that again on the island and go up the coast. And it's pretty up there. Is that a thing? Pretty?
It's very,
nice
very pretty. Beautiful BC, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to start our drive from Victoria, and it is a suburb of Victoria, which we stayed in called Langford. So first you're going to see a little bit of the 4 Points Hotel we stayed in, right?
Yeah, we can throw that in.
Yeah,
sure.
you probably want to see it. It was a great hotel, and it was a perfect jumping off point for getting up and heading up the island. So you might want to consider that. So we're leaving from Langford, from Victoria. We are going to be driving up the east coast of Vancouver Island. So the first point will be Nanaimo, which is quite a major city on the island.
And you may have heard of Nanaimo bars that come from
Of
there.
course, everyone's heard of Nanaimo.
It's not like
bars.
the drinking bars, they're more like a cake, cookie, squishy thing.
It's like a brownie.
It's like 100% sugar. That's what it actually is. You have one of those and they're super white. You wouldn't want to give one to a kid. Anyway, sorry.
So Nanaimo is the first major area we're going to stop in. Above Nanaimo are two other beach towns, and these are all beach towns along the strait of the island. The next one being Parksville, and the following one being Qualicum. So those two are almost considered a suburb of Nanaimo, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, the whole stretch, it seems like that entire stretch from Nanaimo to Qualicum Bay Beach it's sort of considered one area. So in your mind, picture it as a really long, thin city along the coast with three different suburbs. And as we're going to go through, each one of the suburbs has, they cost different, they look different, they have different things. One has a major hospital, the other two doesn't, that kind of thing.
We'll tell you the differences as we go along, but we're going to keep going beyond Qualicum Beach all the way up to Campbell River. And we'll have more coming on Campbell River soon because we spent a little more time there, and we also went across to Quadra Island while we were on Campbell River. So there's lots to show there, but this video is going to be an overview of this stretch that we're doing the drive on today, and we're going to talk about cost of living, cost of housing, whether it's purchasing, renting, cost of healthcare, the availability of healthcare, which is a big one. Transportation. How do we get?
Sum it up this way, a bunch of stuff. Okay, so
you're going to hear all about it.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a little bit of the drive as we're talking and explaining some things, just so you can see it, because it's kind of cool. When you're driving, it looks interesting on a normal road, except when you look over and you can see the inlet waterways going up, which incidentally is it's like you probably have heard where people take like the cruise ships. They would go from Vancouver or Seattle. They would go all the way up to Alaska. Well, they go between. It's kind of like, here's the mainland, here's the island, and they come up in between. They don't go out on the ocean and go that way. They come up through the middle.
Through the strait,
which is, where all these beach towns are. So you see those big cruise ships going through, and it looks cool. So, a couple times we see that. Also, and we'll show you, and I'll see if I can match it up with this particular time as I'm talking about it. There are times where you see the timber crews with a tugboat, and they are hauling like 1,000 logs in the water up the river. And it's just a weird sight to see, but it's very cool also because there's so much wood the way they.
It feels like a river sometimes, but it's a strait.
Yeah, and in some instances it's extremely wide. So of the three towns, the first one we're going to come to is Nanaimo, and it's the largest of the three. And, I don't know what came first, the ferry or the size of the town, but it has the ferry that goes across to the mainland to Vancouver and a couple other places on the mainland. And so, I think that's an hour and a half ride to get from one side from the island over to the mainland. But anyway, we're going to show you that. And what did you think of it? I had a particular definite impression of it when I saw it.
Well, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I knew that it was a major town or city on Vancouver Island.
Somewhere in between a town and a city, yeah.
But I did not know if it was going to be one of those towns with like one main road with some shops and restaurants on it, or whether it was going to have more of a city feel. And it definitely has something in between. So it's definitely a city. Lots of streets. Downtown area is way more than just one street. Although there was a really interesting pedestrian street with shops and restaurants, and that's where we happened to stop and have lunch.
Yeah. What was your overall impression of? My overall impression was I thought it was like on a 1 to 10 scale. I was like 7. It was like I wouldn't move there. If we were going to be moving to that area, that wouldn't be the one.
Yeah, but what are you comparing it to?
I'm comparing it to whether I liked it or whether I didn't like it.
No. Are you comparing it to the other beach towns that we saw, the other places on Vancouver Island, or are you comparing it to Boquete in Panama or Panama City? In your mind,
they're dramatically different from Boquete or even Panama City. It's kind of like. I think it's kind of like buying a car or buying a computer, buying anything. You go in and you go, I'm looking for X, and this doesn't quite measure up to what I have in my mind as the perfect buy, or whatever. But I suppose directly to answer your question of these 3 towns, I was like, okay, there it is. Got the impression. Now let's go to the other 2 and see what they're like. And then in retrospect, it was like, yeah, this isn't the one.
Okay.
But for some people, it would be.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just say that Nanaimo has a lot more to see than what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
So my impression of it was, they are really building up this downtown area because of the construction. I liked the idea of the pedestrian street downtown, which is really friendly to spending an afternoon, doing a little shopping, having a little bite on a patio kind of thing. It looked great. But there's also like a harbor front, there's a dock with a marina, and obviously homes along the waterfront, which we didn't see all of it. And my impression is I want to see more. That's my impression. I think what we saw showed us great potential, and the fact that you named it a number 7 and we didn't see probably a lot of the highlight of the town, I think it has more potential than what you're actually thinking.
It could be, I suppose. Maybe that's an unfair thing of giving it a 7, but I was kind of like, I don't know if I'd want to go into the town a lot, which means, okay, you're stuck in the suburbs, and your suburbs are great, but, I don't know, I would want a little bit more rounded.
Oh, you're comparing it to the next towns, that's why. It's hard not to.
Well, I just sort of ruled it out. It's like, of the 2, so of where we were at that point, having been in Victoria, I would have chose Victoria in a heartbeat,
Really?
Yeah, for sure. So,
but for size, you like to see neon.
Yeah.
And obviously, there was a lot more in a big city in Victoria. But
I'm weird. I can't have too much neon. The more neon, the better the place. That's me. Like Vegas is like, that's kind of about right to me. All right, let's move up a little bit up to the next town, which was somethingville. Parksville. There we go. Yeah.
So when we got to Parksville, it was a bit of a surprise. I thought we were actually arriving at Qualicum because suddenly we were in this other town area, and there was definitely space between Nanaimo and Parksville, like maybe a half-hour drive.
40 minutes.
So it's not like it's butting up on the edge of Nanaimo like a regular suburb. They just look at it that way in terms of comparison. So Parksville was very impressive. I think one of the first buildings we saw was a huge retirement residence right on the beach. The tide was out, obviously, but the beach, it had to be a mile at least.
The beach looked like it
from the
was
building to the shore.
It looked like it was Rhode Island. That's what the beach looked like. It was gigantic. It really, I mean, it just went out forever.
If you like beach, this is the place for you.
Yeah, yeah. And we also, we went into a park there. We rode around a lot and, show you the, the housing and stuff, which was nice. It was nice. I thought it was
very nice.
Sort of a step above, or at least a step nicer, I guess, maybe a better way to put it than
Maybe
Nanaimo.
newer. I think maybe it's a newer development than Nanaimo, so there are less old buildings and structures and more new stuff.
Yeah.
So you like new things.
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, yeah. I like old things too, but yeah. And old things can be really nice old, or they can be like run down looking old.
If they're restored or maintained old, they're great. Yeah.
So anyway, it was nice. And we rode around a bit. We'll show you that. And for this town and the next town, it had a really neat topography in that, I'm going to put my arm up here. It's kind of like if this was the water, this wasn't the town. The town rolled up like that, kind of. Slowly. It wasn't like a huge amount. So if you had houses anywhere along here, you're looking out at the water. So, normally there's, beachfront property and, what are you going to have in a mile stretch? You're going to have, 20 houses. This way in a 1 mile stretch where it hangs up like this, you probably got like 600 houses that can see the water clear as a bell because they're all, stepped up, almost like a movie theater. Nobody's in your way. It was really pretty.
There were a lot of really nice residential streets. So are we still on Parksville, or we're basically also talking about Qualicum Beach as well? Because one kind of rolls into the other.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all of that sort of goes pretty much with Qualicum Beach. The difference in Qualicum Beach is that it is clearly as soon as you hit it there and you kind of ride around the streets, you go, ooh, there's money here. It just has that look. It's like there's like old people with cash. There's yuppies here, if that's still a term. There's, Generation Z with cash. There's a lot of cash here. It's
definitely a more upscale, higher end town. It is still a town feel, but again, this is not a town where you have one main street with a few restaurants. There's a whole downtown village area that is so lovely and quaint. I mean, if you wanted to walk around on the streets of Qualicum Beach, I mean, I'm sure you could spend quite a length of time and not run out of nice streets to walk along.
And also we rode around.
We drove around quite a bit in Qualicum Beach just to show you a lot of the streets that we're talking about and what the homes look like, and basically some of them we tried to show you as you drove towards the strait, that you could see the view of the water from so far away. Really amazing. So it was definitely a spectacular looking town. A lot of retirees and retirement homes in Qualicum Beach and Parksville both. And
yeah, this is the town of the three that had the most retirement specific homes, that type of thing. So in other words, if you wanted to go into an old age home where you're totally self-sufficient, you're handling everything, but you're in a building or a home or a complex where it's a 55 plus community, but that step beyond where if something happened, somebody's there for you. Maybe there's a nurse on call or a doctor or something like that. It's that kind of thing. But then if you needed another step up where it's like 24/7 care, that's there too. And then
you can add services as you need them, as hopefully you never need them, but if you need them, the services can be made available for a cost, right?
Yeah, and then the Alzheimer's and other things, again, the worse off you are, more of those are in Qualicum Beach than the other two, even though the main hospital for the three is in Nanaimo. Pretty cool looking town. Nice little downtown area. Coffee shops, people are out.
BC liquor store. It's like government-run liquor if you want booze. Not beer, but I mean like hard liquor and wine. That's where you got to go. And a lot of streets like this. You can see why people retire here, that's for sure. Because down there is the beach. And the beach is bigger than Daytona Beach, you know, as far as, you know, from the water to where buildings are. It goes on forever.
And the village eatery here is the one I saw. Nice patio out here. Yeah, that looks
Village
nice.
Eatery and Pizza House. There you go.
I like it. None of this is going to be gluten-free. Straight ahead.
Yeah.
Why don't you go down and then come back?
It's quite the view.
Looks like we found it. $1.49.9 for a liter of regular gas. What are you doing? Okay. Full service.
The next town up, which is about another hour, so after those three, now there's kind of like open road, and you know there's an hour up into Campbell River. And Campbell River, the best way to describe it is it's the hub of the northern part of the island. So major hospital is in Nanaimo, and the other major hospital is in Campbell River, which is above that. And we'll show you a little bit of Quadra Island.
Anyway, from Campbell River, you can take a ferry to a bunch of islands from there. There are so many islands up in that part of the strait. We were seeing ocean liners going through. What was interesting was there was a dock built for the cruises to stop at, but the cruise liners, the cruise companies, never ever set up a stop in Campbell River. They always just sailed right by.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a story that we heard.
I can kind of understand why they would do that at at least for the time being, because even though it's a bigger town, I got the impression, and then from reading about it a lot and asking some people and talking, it's not really a tourist destination for people, but it is a big retirement destination because it's so cheap there in comparison to the other beach areas. You know, the other three that we were describing. It can be 50% or 40% cheaper than the other ones. And we'll go through those costs for you.
Yeah, so I'm sure, you already had the alarm bells going off when we were telling you about the central beach towns and the upscaleness of them, because the cost does match that. But yeah, we just kept going up to Campbell River, and you'll see that we get beyond the real pricey stuff and the real touristy areas. And Campbell River is also waterfront. It's also beach all the way along, and very beautiful waterfront and parks and development. But yeah, you're definitely not dealing with all the tourists that the other places might get, or
No glitz. There's no glitz at all. You know, it's just a
no glitz and glamour. There are a lot of new buildings and
Yeah.
homes and beautiful big modern contemporary homes built along the waterfront. But yeah, this was not a flashy town. This is not what you would call high end, but it does have a lot of history. There are a lot of stories. So Campbell River, we went to have a tour and see a waterfall with the help of our friend Chuck, who was a great tour guide, which we'll show in another video. But yeah, he shared a lot of the history of the town and the logging and how it's being developed now after years of transition.
Yeah.
So
generally speaking, I think
lots to learn.
overall, I think like if you jump out 10 years, 12 years, 15 years from now, it's going to be, you know, it'll be a different sort of town because of so many people going there to retire because, you know, again, of those other three, you know, now being the fourth one going up the coast, it's the most reasonable price, and it's kind of in the early stages of retirement kicking in there. Also has a ton of those retirement specific homes or group complexes. There's a lot of them there, in addition to a major hospital because it's the hub of the north, and also I was going to say airline, but airport.
There's an airport there, yeah, which is a major issue because when you land at Victoria Airport, the international airport, it's a half-hour drive down to Victoria. And then from Victoria, and without traffic, you're facing at least another 3-hour drive to go up the island to get to Campbell River.
Mm-hmm.
Was it three?
Three and a half. Yeah, depending on the traffic in Victoria.
Because there was some when we
because it sort of looks like this. This is Victoria in a way, and you land here. So there's no way up because there's water. You got to go all the way down into Victoria and then back around, and then do 3 hours up.
Yeah, and then Campbell River's up there. So you could go to the small airport in Campbell River, take a 2-hour flight to Victoria, and then Victoria is obviously an international airport where you could go.
Did you like that?
Places.
That was basically.
I know, you were talking about Michigan.
That was Michigan, yeah.
The hand.
That's it, yeah. If you were a Michigander, you would have got that. Everybody else is like, whew, right over your head. You're like, what? What are you talking about? So now that you got the overview of everything, generally the way it is, let's get into cost because, you know, you want to know the cost. So let's assume a really nice, good, decent size 2-bedroom condo. We're going to buy one or we're going to rent one. Survey says...
Well, let's start at the lowest, which is Campbell River, and that would be an average price, not the lowest price. The average price is about 460,000 Canadian.
Yeah. Now, if you were going to be in those other three areas, Nanaimo, Qualicum Beach, or Parksville, especially Qualicum Beach, 2-bedroom condo is going to be somewhere around $920,000, which is double. As you can get an idea of why I could tell you, I was telling you, it's way more reasonable why people are going to Campbell River.
And you don't want to hear Quadra Island, but I'm going to tell you anyway. They're starting at around 1.3 million and going north from there. So
I'm sure the land plots are not like a house plot. That you're on an acre or 2 or 3 or 12 or whatever. Anyway, it's cool. But I mean, that's a pretty big spread, from town to town. 460 to 920 to 1.3 million. That's a big spread. So that's buying a 2-bedroom condo. If you wanted to rent one, in Campbell River, it's going to be roughly somewhere around $1,300 in that range.
And then the beach areas, if you go south from there, are average around $1,700 a month.
Now, for renting a condo on Quadra Island, it's pretty simple. There aren't any. So that eliminates that. Let's move on to healthcare. Healthcare is kind of easy, you know, because you don't have to get into specifics about it. It really comes down to just a couple things. Take it from there, Buckaroo.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, Campbell River is the place you want to be if you need full emergency services, a full-on hospital with probably any medical interventions. You're going to find that in Campbell River.
Or if you're down on the other end, in other words, you're not up toward it, if that's not the closest one, and you're in those 3 beach towns, Nanaimo is the other one. So Campbell River and Nanaimo are the hospital areas, and then the beach towns in between, somebody there has to decide which one they're going to. More than likely they would go to Nanaimo because it would be closer.
But there are obviously clinics in all the
For sure.
areas that offer emergency services and transportation to get to a hospital.
And let's go through long-term care. I mean, we kind of went through it a little bit already. In long-term care, if you need some of those facilities, essentially it's Campbell River and it is Qualicum Beach. The rest, you know, they're hit and miss. Now, another question, if you're retired, it always comes up is, well, what's the weather like? You know, it's Canada. Is it going to be really ultra cold in the wintertime? Is it decently warm in the summer? What's the deal for these island towns and Campbell River?
The thing that we didn't really understand was that the summer's not really longer and it's not as hot. So other areas of Canada can get to, you know, easily 90 degrees in the summer months.
Yeah, we were in Toronto. Sometimes it would hit like 100. You'd get a couple days or a week in a row, like 102, 101.
Yeah,
it would get
yeah.
blazing hot.
But that's not the case on Vancouver Island. It's very temperate. So the summers are cooler, really only heading up into the 70s through the summer months, and the winter is milder.
It does go below freezing, but it's typically at night. Like during the daytime, the highs rarely go below freezing. So we might snow overnight, but then, you know, it's going to melt in the daytime. Anyway, as she was saying, they're pretty mild winters, you know, by Canadian standards.
However, there's one little piece of news that we weren't thrilled to hear, and that is that even though Victoria is boasting about being one of the sunniest places,
Yeah.
up the island is not so. Like throughout the seasons, away from summer, throughout the seasons, you're going to see a lot more cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
definitely not as sunny. And I guess the clouds accumulate over the strait and maybe they just sit there a lot longer.
That's
So
gonna
it
be
was
the main one.
beautiful when we were there. And also I just want to add that even though the temperature in the summer only hits up into the 70s, you know what it's like. You might be outside and it's 70 degrees, but when you're in the sun, it feels like 80, you know, or
Yeah,
much
yeah,
warmer.
yeah.
So it did not feel like 70. Definitely felt like a warm summer day.
Another big area is cost of living, and it's really difficult to get a sense of what the cost of living is for these areas. I mean, no matter how much you search and you look at, you start getting numbers that'll be like $4,000 a month, but they will be for like, you know, the specialized housing, you know, if you're old and you're in a home or stuff like that, which is a nice number to know, $4,000, and things being cheaper in Campbell River. But as far as an actual cost of living, hard to find that number. The only thing we kind of get a shot at working backwards, if you were renting in Campbell River, you know, your base is $1,300 for renting a 2-bedroom, and it's $1,700 for renting a 2-bedroom, you know, along the other beach towns. And then I guess it's, you know, how much do you eat and how much do the other, you know, other stuff? What else are you going to spend? I mean, what was it going to be? Maybe $1,000
Right.
a month, somewhere in there.
Well, I'm sure that you're going to be spending more in some of the higher end towns like Qualicum Beach.
For sure. 100%.
And then, you know, for things like entertainment or dining out in restaurants. But one thing that you can do to offset costs is go to the local markets, because on Vancouver Island, each of the towns that we've talked about have year-round markets with local homegrown foods. And that's unusual to have a year-round farmers market,
Yeah,
right?
in farmers markets where, you know, there's a specified building and, you know, the farmers all bring their stuff in one day a week, or
And they're
where you
lower
can-
prices
where you
than a
can go-
regular supermarket.
Yeah, or you can go to actual farms and, you know, and they're there every single day and buy everything that it's edible pretty much. Unless you wanted a pineapple or something, that probably isn't going to be there. Not growing them.
Yeah, so you'll be supporting the farmers and not paying the grocery store markup. So what are the key decision factors that you're going to be considering if you're looking at a place?
Money. Money.
It's all those things.
Yeah, the budget. Basically, Campbell River is cheaper than the other three. That's pretty much, that's it. If you want to spend less, you go to Campbell River. The other places are nicer.
And Campbell River is right up there if you're looking at healthcare availability as a priority, Campbell River or Nanaimo.
Yeah. Then there's island living, which enters into this, and it sounds really, really cool. And for everything we've been talking about, there's two island livings. One is being on Vancouver Island, which is the main island, and everything is there on the island because it's a gigantic island. And then there's all the other little islands like Quadra Island, as we've been talking about. When you're on Quadra Island, you're dependent on the ferry. You get sick, you got to take the ferry. It's slow. You need food, you got to take the ferry. You need a car, you got to take the ferry. You want anything, you want a cigar, you got to take the ferry.
Let me guess, you got to take the ferry.
You got to take the ferry, yeah.
One thing our friend Chuck told us about these islands and ferries is that for each ferry ride that you take away from Campbell River, so the first one to Quadra, the second one to the next island and the next island, for each ferry ride, the pace of life slows down. So if you want a really slow pace of life and a slow way to get back, just go island jumping.
We were joking around. It was kind of like, here's the island, you're normal. Then you take a joint and you go to the next one. And then you take a Xanax and you go to the next one. And then you're doing Demerol and I don't know what comes after Demerol. I don't know. I don't do drugs, but it's kind of like, finally you're like coma, on the last island at the end. Anyway, so much for island living. Then there's
if you're looking for that retirement community feel, easy to get around, easy to make friends with like-minded people, you're probably going to peak there at Qualicum Beach and Parksville.
Yes, and that was definitely my choice. It was both of our choices, really, of seeing them all.
We liked them there. We liked it in both of those areas.
It was really, it felt like, ooh, this would be nice to live here. It is expensive, though. And lastly, the weather as an overall, the weather overall is pretty much the same in all of these places, really. And that is, fall weather pretty much year-round, except for two sections where you're going to get a winter that's mild and you're going to get a summer that's mild, both of them being shorter.
Well, don't forget about spring, and spring is a nice season.
Yeah, no, I'm saying if you like spring or fall, that's what a lot of it is going to feel like, but not so much sun. And that was, again, a surprise to all of us. Yeah. So, there it is. That's pretty much the east coast of Vancouver Island. That's our take on it all as we drove up and spent a lot of time there trying to get a feel for it. We will do the next video on Campbell River, get a little bit more specific about that and give you a feel for it if you were thinking about going to any of these island beach towns along the way, along that strait. And again, they were all nice. Some are just way nicer than others.
And you know what? If you have any interest at all, it's a fabulous place to go for a vacation. Just spend a little time in each of the places that interest you. And there are many more places on the island. We just did the one stretch up the coast. And Campbell River, I don't know if I said this earlier, it's not the top of the island. There's still a fair ways to go north from there.
Yeah, and the whole other side, which a lot of people retire over there too. But
the ocean coast.
Yeah, but we didn't do that. Otherwise, we'd have to be living on the island, and we weren't going to do that because
not yet.
Gotta get back to Panama.
Well, thank you. Thank you for watching through and staying to the end. And I know some of you who do that. Frankie and Pam, you're right there. I know it. We sure appreciate you and hope you'll subscribe, like if you liked it, and come back and see us again soon. Bye for now. Ooh.